evening, everyone. Welcome to the February 7th, 2024 meeting of the Gaithersburg Planning Commission. I'm going to see if the mayor will loan me his gong one night for opening the meeting.
I don't know. That's like
need to get a bigger
another
gong.
man's underwear.
Ooh, that's a good idea. My gong is bigger than your gong. So we don't have, well, hello everybody, welcome, hope you're well. We don't have any minutes tonight, so our first meeting agenda item is sign permits for sign -32356. 2024, a sign waiver for Chesapeake Urology Monument sign at 808 West Diamond Avenue, the C2 General Commercial Zone. It's a minor waiver, and presenting from staff is Jasmine Forbes. Good evening, Jasmine.
Good evening. So staff's before you to present sign permit application SIGN-32356-2024 for Chesapeake Urology at 808 West Diamond Avenue. And as shown on the screen, the property is located within the Quince Tree Executive Center and is Zone C2. This application comes before the Planning Commission because the applicant is requesting letter heights that are less than 7 inches tall. Section 24-210B and subsection 12 of the sign ordinance permits individual letter heights for monument signs a minimum of 7 inches. In accordance to section 24-213A of the City Code, Planning Commission has the authority to approve minor waiver for sign permits that deviates from the requirements in the code. And I will have the applicant, King Paget?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, to go over the presentation.
Okay, thanks. Good evening.
Hey, how are you guys doing this evening? My name is Ken Paget with Mid-Atlantic Permitting Services. For the record, I brought this application forth on behalf of Chesapeake Urology. It's a prostate center at the subject address. Basically, the user, Chesapeake Urology, took over an existing space, and there was a monument sign out in front of the property. They'd like to reface the sign, and they'd like to have their logo, which reads Chesapeake Urology Prostate Center, on the sign. In order to get it formatted correctly, all of the letter sets except the very bottom tagline, Prostate Center, meet the city requirement. Those letters are 5.8 inches. Per the city ordinance, there's 4 points that we should prove to the Planning Commission for the approval, so I'll read through that. The first point would be such deviation will not have an adverse impact on the health, safety, and general welfare of the city, its residents and businesses, and the general public and surrounding properties. You know, the sign being proposed is consistent with the Quince Tree Executive Center, and it's compatible in surrounding areas. There's other signs in the complex that are similar in nature with smaller text than the 7-inch minimum letter height requirement. The second point is such deviation will not be a hazard to traffic, vehicles, or pedestrians. Contrary, the sign is there for wayfinding purposes to allow patients and city residents to identify the nature of the business being conducted in the property. Again, the previous tenant sign, it's just a reface of an existing sign. Previous tenant had smaller letter set as well, and it didn't seem to pose any types of hazards of being lettered the way it was previously. Third point would be such deviation is necessary due to location obstructions or other factors that adversely impact the visibility of the sign. The sign's very visible from the intersection and to traveling motorists up and down the address road. This letter set is slightly under the 7-inch requirement at 5.88 inches in height, so we don't feel that there's going to be any kind of an impact in that point. And the fourth thing is such a deviation is in conformance with the purpose of this article. The waiver conforms to all the purposes of the sign article. Most particularly, the waiver will contribute to the improvement health of residents throughout the DC metropolitan area and create additional economic viability to the city of Gaithersburg as patients travel to the Chesapeake Urology Prostate Center for treatment. The sign is consistent, as I said before, with existing signs in the Quince Tree Executive Park and surrounding commercial areas, and will be visually compatible and will not create visual clutter. So that concludes my presentation. Are there questions?
Thank you. Any questions?
No questions.
All right. Is there anyone in the audience that's here to comment on this application? And it doesn't look like anyone is on the attendee list here.
We have one person on it, actually.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right, so just so we're clear, Control Room, would you please play the online testimony video.
Good evening. If you've connected to the meeting tonight via Zoom and you're on a desktop or a laptop and you wish to make a public comment, we can't currently see or hear you. What you need to do, please, is wiggle your mouse around and look towards the bottom center of your screen. You should see a raise hand button. Go ahead and click on that now for us, please. Alternatively, if you've connected in via telephone, you can press *9.
All right, so we'll see if anybody does raise their hand. In the meantime, would you mind putting up the image of the proposed sign, Jasmine, from the packet? Yeah, that one. And I know one of the things that the sign ordinance was considering when having the minimum heights was the concept of being able to read it while you're driving and therefore not have to slow down and see it and figure it out and then cause a problem with traffic. And as I know the road is 2-lane divided in front of this building, but it doesn't really behave that way. It's a fairly slow, local type street. So the speed is an issue. But one of the things that struck me about this, and I'll really kind of turn to the applicant to comment on this, if anything about this would be distracting, it's how crowded the 3 lines of copy is, as opposed to being kind of discernible 3 layers of. Is there something that's forcing that so tight in the spacing?
Yeah, I can't speak to that directly. Chesapeake Urology, this is the way they have had their logo branded, and I can't really weigh in on spacing issues with that.
Fair enough.
I'd say it's significantly easier to read and less distracting than the existing sign that's there.
Fair enough,
It's
yeah.
indecipherable, so.
Okay, any other questions?
No.
Jasmine, what's your recommendation, please?
Okay, so staff recommends to the planning commission, based on the exhibit submitted, applicant's testimony, and the staff report, findings and recommendation, grant a minor waiver for sign -32356-124, allowing letter heights less than 7 inches tall, finding in compliance with section 24-13A of the city code.
All right, thank you. Any concerns with the recommendation?
No.
I would just add, I think, John, you made a good point, but I think we can overlook what is, you're right, a very blockish amount of text. It's very crammed together, which is not the point of wayfinding, right? So our concern would be that it's not visible, just as John said. But I would just add that it's also really, really right on top of that intersection. That intersection, as you said, is very slow as you pull into the Dogfish shared entry there. And so I think this is the smaller text does not interfere with wayfinding at all. But
I'm glad you did that, just for the record. There's
Yeah.
good findings there. Any other?
There is one small concern. I noticed on the north side, there's shrubbery just where the numbers are, 808. Will that shrubbery be removed, or is that going to stay there? Because otherwise it could obliterate the...
That would be in the landlord's control
Okay.
of the landscaping in front of the sign.
Do we want to put a...
We can make a recommendation to the landlord.
So there, as part of our sign ordinance, landscape at the bottom of the sign is required.
is required,
and to not grow over the
but
sign.
not to grow a certain
Yeah,
height, right?
yeah.
Okay, so okay. Okay,
All right,
thank you.
anything else? All right, any issues with moving forward with an approval?
No?
Okay, is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, based on the exhibit submitted, the applicant's testimony, and the staff report, findings and recommendation, move that the planning commission grant a minor waiver for sign 32356-2024, allowing letter heights less than 7 inches tall, finding it in compliance section 24-213A of the city code.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thanks very much. Good luck.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
your time this evening.
Thank you. All right, next up is a recommendation to the mayor and city council on annexation application 9683-2023, petition to annex parcel P940 located on South Frederick Avenue between O'Neill Drive and I-370, the Casey property, and assign CD zoning. And this is a recommendation to mayor and city council, and presenting from staff is Laura Mafood. Good evening, Laura.
Good evening. This is a continuation of the recommendation on annexation petition X9683-2023 for the approximately 5¼ acre Casey property located on 355 between O'Neill Drive and I-370, and it's outlined here on your screen. The petition was introduced at the December 4th, 2023 Mayor and City Council meeting, and the Commission reviewed the annexation at its January 17th, 2024 meeting, voting to defer final action on the recommendation to tonight's meeting in order to receive comments. There are currently 23 exhibits in the record, and no public comments have been received. As mentioned during the January 17th meeting, the Planning Commission's role in the annexation process is to determine whether the proposed zoning is appropriate, whether the annexation plan complies with the city's master plan, and whether there are adequate public facilities to serve the annexed area. And this on your screen is taken from the annexation plan. It shows the proposed CD zoning and maximum density and future redevelopment with multifamily residential uses. The Montgomery County Planning Board reviewed the annexation at their January 25th meeting. Their role is to determine whether or not the proposed zoning is consistent with the uses and densities that would be permitted under the current county zoning. We're still waiting for formal comments from them, but the Planning Board was supportive of the annexation plan and of county staff's recommendation, which, as seen in the county staff report included as Exhibit 23, stated that the proposed CD zone substantially complies with the current county CRT zone and that the proposed density would not be substantially higher from what is allowed there now. Staff notes that the annexation petition is just the first step before any development can occur. Should the annexation be approved by the Mayor and City Council, then the applicant will come back with a rezoning application for the two adjacent parcels that are already in the city, as well as an SDP application in order to facilitate the phased redevelopment that they envision for the site. Staff is supportive of the annexation petition and recommends that the Planning Commission recommend to the Mayor and City Council that based upon the findings presented in the preliminary reports and the evidence in the record, that the proposed CD zoning for annexation X9683-2023 is appropriate, that the proposed annexation plan is in compliance with the city's master plan and strategic plan, and that the annexation area can be served by both existing and future public facilities. And I'd also just like to note that if you have any other comments on the annexation outside of these 3 required items, staff can make note of them and include them in their memo to council. And that's all I have.
All right. So I'm glad you mentioned something about the comments from the county, because in your staff report, or at least one of the attachments to one of the exhibits, it said that they recommended forwarding a recommendation for approval with comment, but it didn't come with comments, right? So
we are still waiting for the formal comments.
any idea what they might say, or what? Did they have any concerns, at least?
No, the county staff report was supportive of the proposed annexation plan.
So there's no concern that the comments will derail some of this or change it? Okay.
I don't foresee that. They were very supportive of the applicant's vision for the future redevelopment of the site.
Great. All right. And our record's closed, so we won't be asking for a comment tonight, but we can discuss our recommendation. So any questions for Laura or concerns over the recommendation?
No.
No, I think it's both straightforward and a great addition to the city for what it'll unlock for the property. So.
Yep. It obviously has a ton of existing infrastructure. The CD zone's already coming up. This completes the CD zone. I think it is a great match to the CRT in the county, just from a technical zoning standpoint. So it just makes perfect sense.
And the framework for this to happen is very conservative, because it has to align with what's already established in the master plan, county zoning. Everything has to kind of mesh and be essentially the same. So there wouldn't be much latitude to shift the intent anyway. No. But it is. I think I agree with you that it's good addition to the city, and a good complement to what's developed immediately adjacent to that property as well. We heard a great presentation from the Casey Foundation on what their intent was. So that's really encouraging and good.
And as a impetus to improve the neighboring properties. That's great.
All right. Any other concerns? Not. So you need a motion for a recommendation, right? And the recommendation, as you read it into the record, is the whole.
Yes,
the whole thing.
It can be one motion, just those 3 items included.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks. All right. Is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I move that the Planning Commission recommend to the Mayor and City Council that based upon the findings presented in the preliminary report and the evidence in the record, that the proposed zoning of CD corridor development for annexation X9683-2023 is appropriate, and that the proposed X9 X 9683-2023 annexation and its associated plan are in compliance with the city's master plan and 2022 strategic plan. And finally, that the proposed X 9683-2023 annexation and associated plan can be served by both existing and future public facilities.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thanks, Laura. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Please, please express to the applicants team our good luck and excitement over this moving forward.
Will do.
Thank you. Next up is the public hearings. We actually have this split between a public hearing and a site plan for a concurrent application. So, just briefly, it's for a 1,000, it's for ASDP 9706-2023, a new 1,056 square foot covered outdoor dining pier in the Rio Washingtonian Lake parcel. Sam Copeland's ready from staff. Why don't you go ahead and read the whole thing and explain how we're doing the concurrent site plan and public hearing?
Sure. So good evening, everyone. So staff's before you this evening to introduce a consolidated public hearing for amendment to schematic development plan ASDP-9706-2023, and also the amendment to final plan AFP 9732-2024. This is for a new 1,056 square foot dining pier for Guapo's Cantina in the Rio Lake parcel. So showing you on the screen, you've got the 18.09 acre lake parcel at the Rio Washingtonian Center, which is zoned MXD. I've also shown you the proposed location for the dining pier in blue, with the lake parcel in red. The subject's property receives schematic development plan approval, SDP 9462-2022, on July 3rd, 2023, which established restaurant uses on the lake parcel. This ASDP application comes before the Planning Commission as a public hearing pursuant to Section 24198C of the City Code. Following the courtesy review that was presented to the Mayor and City Council on January 2nd, 2024, the Council directed staff to have the amendment be referred to the Planning Commission for public hearing and final action. The public hearing was duly advertised in the January 18th, 2024 and the January 25th, 2024 issues of the Washington Post. Notice of the public hearing was advertised on the City of Gaithersburg webpage on January 9th, 2024. At the present time, there are 8 exhibits in the record file, and all exhibits are referenced in the exhibit list. All of the individual exhibits may be reviewed during the course of the meeting on the city's webpage or at the Planning and Code Administration Office during regular business hours. Any objection to any exhibits should be noted prior to the closing of the record, otherwise the exhibits will be deemed received into evidence. And here tonight to present the application and answer any questions you may have is the applicant Jeff Pirana of the Peterson Companies.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me here tonight. So, as Sam has pointed out, this is the location of this. Personally, I'm pretty excited about this project. I've been working on this project since 1994. So,
This pier?
I've got a, I remember sitting many nights in here till midnight. But so we have these barges. We had these barges when we did the big renovation. We ended up with 7 of these, and so I suggested, let's buy some of these. There's got to be something we can do with a couple of these things. And you see a lot of these barges pop up in areas down in Old Town Alexandria, up in Baltimore, and to me it was exciting. It was a great opportunity to reinvigorate the lake. So I know you guys have already looked at Copper Canyon, and this was just the next phase. We had 2 more, and putting the Christmas tree on it seemed like a waste to me, actually. So Guapo's has been here forever. It's one of our more successful restaurants, and so this project was really fun to actually sit down with the architects and dream stuff up and come up with a vision for this end of the project. So the location, as Sam has previously shown, the barge is 22.5 feet wide by 44 feet wide with 2 4-foot wide by 30-foot gangways to it. One gangway is for pedestrians and customers. The other one is primarily for service and aligns with the service door coming out of Guapo's. So we've kind of strategically lined those up. The total number of seats is flexible. This shows a slightly less than about 50 seats. I don't really perceive that we'll ever have 50 seats out there. It's kind of a, if you go to my favorite barge floating pier restaurant is Barca down in Old Town, and they have a combination of seat rails, bar rails, seating tables, and it's just a dynamic place. So, but somewhere south of 50 seats. There are various elevations, the various sides here. So it will be, the barges will be black. We're going to dovetail off of Guapo's existing colors, green and red and yellow. There's nothing quiet about Guapo's from an architectural perspective. So we've dressed up the pergola, which consists of, it's got louvers, it'll have shade sails in it, it will have heaters to extend the season a little bit, it'll have sides to it like you see in a lot of places, and have fans as well. It's kind of a Florida-based company we talked to. There's a similar structure on the Charlie Prime that was just installed probably last year at this time. So here's some more renderings. On the side facing the larger Sodexo building, we wanted to put a screen, introduce some wood materials, and dovetail off of the boardwalk, the kind of theme that we have over there. And so we have to have a back wall, and it's going to be facing the Sodexo building. The open side is closer to where we have the stage and the tensile structure that we just put in a few years ago. So interior, this shows some of the heaters, the fans, and what we perceive the inside of this to look like. And this new entry portal gateway that'll be built on the edge of the pier as you go down into the restaurant pier. The gangway to the left, that's kind of the service gangway. So, oops, let me go here. As far as the sketch plan and the master plan, we feel that we comply with the sketch plan. The last sketch plan that we have allows for 30,000 square feet of retail commercial space in the lakefront parcel. I believe the Copper Canyon Pier is about the same size, might be a foot or two difference, but it's basically the same. So we have about 28 or 27,000 square feet left in the sketch plan, square footage. And we are in accordance with the master plan and the land use designation. The other benefits, I can go on and on because I think this is exciting, and I've lived at Washingtonian here, Rio Washingtonian now, for a very, very long time, but this encourages land use. I think it supports and enhances all the other stuff we're doing there. The company a couple years ago decided, hey, we needed to reinvigorate. We needed to refresh the Rio, and this is one of the last few pieces. I suspect some of you were over at Sport Rock. That was very exciting, so the company's really made a big effort to refresh the whole place, and this is kind of one of the last pieces. So there's adequate public facilities for everything. Again, it's 1,000 square feet basically. Dovetails off the restaurant. There's really no other additional uses. They have all the public facilities that are needed. It expands the outdoor dining section. I think with respect to the MXD zone and the whole area, it just complements everything else. And it's going to create a new vibe over there at Rio that we're pretty excited about. That's kind of the end of the presentation. Thank you. If you guys have any questions,
Sorry, go ahead.
What is the strategy for lighting the gangway, and does the city have a point of view on lighting levels for safety purposes in and around the access points to this?
Code
I don't know.
does.
Let's start with what do you plan to do with it, with lighting on it?
On the gangway?
Yeah, and just you kind of think about the pathway people are using to get there and find their way on and off of it. And
Yeah, well, the boardwalk itself, of course, has lights. There's general illumination there, and we don't really anticipate anything added there on this entry portal that we showed here. Here in the lower element, there'll be some lighting built into that will put more foot candles right at the entrance, to kind of lead people down there. We are contemplating putting some sort of LED light on the gangway.
Right.
So you light that walkway. They did some stuff down at the ballpark on some gangways down there one of the restaurants that I think is pretty cool, so we'll probably integrate that into it. Otherwise, out on the structure itself, there are not a kit, but there's a company that makes this, and we work with them with various options. And, that has the lights, the heaters, the fans.
Okay.
And then we
I think it's the
embellish it.
gangway specifically, so I just want to know if the city has any point of view on it, on expecting a certain, 5, 10, 15-foot candles, whatever it is, to make it safe, or not, if we don't have any real specific code thing we can point to. And if we don't, then maybe we should talk about it. So that was what I.
There's a building code for egress, so they're gonna have to
Yeah,
meet that.
and that's sort of the other piece. Is this considered a permanent building, or is it temporary? Where does this fall in kind of the use building type world?
Yeah, so what I can say is the fire marshal, they reviewed it as, because originally everything was being called a barge, but the preferred terminology was pier, because this isn't like a river cruise where you're getting on it and you're moving around. It's affixed to one location. So we've been calling this as a pier in terms of permitting, but that's a very good question about the lighting. I don't have an answer to that right now, but that's something that I'm sure will come up with the building permit review. Ultimately, if anything does come up that does change, we can always review that with an amendment to final plan.
But you do have a pier actually that exists on the lake on the opposite side where the rides are, where the merry-go-round is.
Yes.
There is a pier there that doesn't have any lighting from what I recall. It's just like a deck, but there's no lighting. So apparently, it appears to me that there isn't any code for lighting on, quote, a pier.
So under our current zoning ordinance, there is not any light standards. Again, it's one of the changes with retool actually, is to add some light standards into
Okay.
the zoning ordinance, but currently there is not.
Because this is coming up now, this is like the second one more than possibly to come.
But that would be about, placemaking and land use, not about safety and life safety, egress.
Yeah, I mean, it starts to go into different changes about bollard lighting for pedestrian scale, what's the minimum, maximum foot candles, things like that.
Yeah.
But there are, I believe, building code requirements as well, to your
Yes.
point, that would also have to follow.
There is going to be a minimum code requirement from a lighting level for.
And
Well,
the
I
same-
don't know if there is. That's my point. Is a pier a use or a construction type that's going to?
It's a path of egress from an occupied space, so
Okay.
it's using, the code is use
I like your reason.
agnostic.
And,
I like
and the
your
other
reasoning,
pier,
but-
if you're gonna be an architect, I would say it's probably bigger than a third of the depth of a pier, so you don't need it's not egress. You see them.
Does a bridge count as a
So
pier?
open.
Has a bridge, because we have a bridge over the,
Which is, I
that
don't
has
know if it's
lighting
lit or
on
not.
it,
Yeah.
obviously, and a bridge is a wooden structure.
Okay,
It goes over
so
water.
we don't know for sure how this is going to be prescribed, so we might need to address it in a condition or something. All right.
I've got another question.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a concern about the gate. In other words, when it's not in use, both in the wintertime as well as possibly in the late hours, can you describe what kind of gate structure will be at both gangplanks?
We have where the boat rental place is, we have a gate on there, and we have the stainless steel gate on that one, and that's what we'll locate down at these two gangways as well.
Because I
So,
don't see- there aren't any sketches about that, that's why I was asking the question.
Yeah, but I was going to ask the same thing, and especially from an architectural perspective, we've got these great renderings of the entrances to the gangplank. Well, to actually prevent people, teenagers, whoever, from hopping over, it can't just be a low gate. It's got to be big enough to keep someone from hopping over and getting onto the barge, and that needs to be designed and thought about in with the architecture of this.
yeah, okay. Right now, the gate is planned to be a cable rail, an extension of the cable rail that we have, similar to the gate we have on the ramp and the gangway that goes down to the paddle boats.
Okay.
That's the current plan. And
Do you have active site security?
24 hours. 24 hours a day, yeah.
And if you had
Yeah, there's cameras and security.
Camera
and-
security, yeah.
And if you had any nuisance
Not on the
trespassing
paddle
pier,
boats,
yeah,
no.
on the boat pier, which doesn't have safety rails, doesn't have all that stuff.
Worst thing that happened at the boat pier was one of the engineers left the valve open one day and the water got a little low.
Missed that.
But
In the lake?
in
Where
the-
did the water go?
I'm not sure where it goes.
Virginia.
Okay, any other
That's
questions? Okay.
Just the only disappointing part of the presentation, Jeff, was that you said this is the last piece. So that's disappointing in and of itself. It's such a great
Yeah.
revitalization, and
Stay tuned.
and
As soon as
we
that word came out of my mouth, I wanted to take that back, because, no, we are working on some other exciting things.
Great.
You guys
That's
may
what we
see
want.
me sooner than you'd like.
no, we'd love to see you as soon as you can get here with good ideas.
One
great.
one more question, just when you look at it on plan, is there a reason that this pier is pushed so far away from the actual shoreline? I mean,
It appears that way.
and the only reason I'm asking is I'm picturing the servers who are gonna be running back and forth, and, you know, you've got 30 feet of water between the edge and the pier. My recollection from Copper Canyon, and it was a little bit shorter than that. I'm just curious what the thinking was.
You know, it's subjective, I guess. We went out there and measured it. And as an architect, I'm like, yeah, I mean, Copper Canyons to me is too tight. You know, that's their opinion. You know, that was what they wanted to do. For us, we wanted to make it more of an experience. You're out in the water. To me, the other one's like an extension of the boardwalk. We want to be out of the water. I mean, that's what's so cool about this. Who else has a 12-acre lake? Like, nobody. You know, the whole time we did National Harbor, we're like, we got a Potomac River. You guys, I mean, nobody has this. And so that's what's exciting about this project to me. And that's why we pushed it out as far as we did. We
Good answer.
thought that would be cool.
All right, anything else? And just for the record, I will ask if there's anyone in the audience who would like to comment on this application. Nobody has jumped up. Come on, Carol, you might want to say something right now. Okay. And it doesn't look like there are any attendees logged in any longer, so I won't ask for the video. All right, Sam, what's the recommendation?
Sure. So staff's recommendation, and stepping back, so you've got the proposed ASDP and the proposed amendment to final plan. So 2 plans, 2 proposed motions.
Okay.
Staff recommends that the Planning Commission, based on the evidence and testimony submitted into the record and the findings in the staff analysis, approve amendment to schematic development plan ASDP-9706-2023 and adopt a resolution finding it in compliance with sections 24-198C2. And staff recommends that the Planning Commission, based on the exhibits submitted and the staff report findings and recommendation, grant AFP-9732-2024, finding it in compliance with section 24-170 and 24-172A of the city code with one condition. The one condition in the report was for some minor cleanups that could be addressed. And I did write down a sample additional condition if you would propose for the lighting in the gates.
If I'm reading this right, too, that would go with the site plan. The SDP wouldn't have the lighting in the gates, so we would do that as part of the site plan.
Correct.
Okay, all right. All right, so I'd like to do that, actually. I mean, great plan, by the way. This is exciting to see. I don't see a lot of things not to like about it, except I want to make sure we cover the security of the gangway when it's closed and lighting for safety. Maybe with a condition that kind of sounds like if it's not already covered in the building code. I mean, since we don't know for sure where this falls, at least have something like work with staff to establish appropriate lighting levels and an appropriate security for the pier when it's not open.
And to make clear, our concern is life safety, right? Not any other kind of atmospheric.
Oh, for the lighting?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe it's not covered, but it's also that sort of squishy thing where, like Lloyd said, there is a pier that's not lit, but there's no true occupancy on it, right? I mean, so it's hard to know how this will play out. And if for whatever reason it just, kind of falls through the cracks and what it needs to be, let's just make it part of the site plan and, make sure it gets done. Sounds good. Does that work?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Sam, is that enough for a condition? Or do you want to try it out, or?
Yeah, I believe so. So I've got the first condition, which is what staff had come prepared with. It was applicant must submit revised plans to address staff comments to be approved by the planning department staff prior to the issuance of the building permit. And what I've gathered so far is applicant must work with staff to revise lighting and gates to be approved by the planning department staff prior to issuance of a building permit.
Perfect. I think that goes with the site plan, though, not the SDP, right?
Correct. Both would be for the site plan, not the SDP.
Okay. So when we do the motion, because you have the site plan, like on the agenda, the way the agenda's structured, I believe I'll have to read it more carefully, but just as long as it lines up under the site plan.
Yeah,
that
it does.
motion.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. So is there a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, based on the evidence and testimony submitted into the record and the findings and the staff analysis, recommend that the Plan Commission approve amendment to schematic development plan ASDP 9706-2023 and adopt resolution finding in compliance with section 24-198C2. That's the first one. Do you want to read two consecutive ones?
We can do them together, right? Or should we do them
We can
separately?
both put them together, right?
The SDP and the site plan?
I think the request was to do them separately, and because these are two separate
Right.
plans, I didn't hear you, so I'm sorry.
All right.
I would actually do them by two separate motions.
Okay, so we got the
I
first
believe
motion.
one includes different conditions as well.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So the first one, we got a second?
Second.
Motion and second on the SDP amendment. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that passes unanimously. And now we need a motion, please, on the amended site plan.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Planning Commission, based on the exhibits submitted, the staff report findings, and the recommendations, grant AFP 9732-2024, finding it in compliance with section 24-170 and 24-172A of the City Code with the two conditions as read into the record.
Second.
So moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. All right, Jeff, nice work. Thanks for bringing this in. It's exciting to see these creative enhancements for the
Thank you, and
Make
I
sure you
look
got the
forward to
PDFs on
coming
them,
here
too.
again and showing you some of the new stuff we're thinking about.
Glad to see it.
Now what you gotta do is get Sport Rock to get together with Guapas, and they can do some rappelling from the rock wall down to the dock.
A zip line.
Zip line, oh, yeah. We talked about that a
Personal
little bit,
notation
actually.
devices are under the seats in case the barge goes
All
down.
right.
Thank
yeah.
you.
Thank you. All right, that takes us to, from the commission, Phil, can I start with you tonight?
Yeah, nothing for me this evening.
Nothing.
Anything, Matt?
All set?
All right, and which then moves us to, from the staff, and we have a text amendment sponsorship.
Yeah, so as you're aware, we released the draft of the updated zoning code yesterday to the public for public comment and review. We also have two joint work sessions on the upcoming agendas. That's on February 26th and March 11th, where staff will go through those changes to the code, present those to the council and the planning commission, and also answer any questions that you may have or the public may have as well about the project. So tonight, and I just want to remind you, we did put together a Cliff Notes / summary version of the code update. It's a lot, we understand. So we wanted to kind of create a version that's a little more easy for someone to digest. It kind of hits the highlights of the changes. So that is also on the project page as well for anyone who's interested. And then all I need tonight is just a motion from the Planning Commission to officially sponsor and open the record.
I mean, I know, we're somewhat in the geek category with looking at this document, but quite frankly, the format, the graphics, everything about it makes it so much easier to read and navigate than some of the older documents. So
It's all grown up.
Sure.
it's all grown up.
We appreciate that. Again, that was a major goal when we were putting this together, is to make it more readable and user-friendly, so.
So do you need just a so moved?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that passes unanimously. Let's sponsor
Rock
it
and roll.
formally.
Rock and
Very
roll.
exciting.
Yeah.
So other than the two upcoming work sessions, again, on the February 26th and March 11th, your next regular meeting is February 21st.
Great.
Right.
All right.
And congratulations on the amendment to the zoning rewrite. Congratulations. A lot of work. Just a ton of work. It's
More
really
than an
great.
amendment this time.
Yeah, more than an amendment this time. Thank God.
John, you look like you got some stuff cooking over there.
Yeah, I think I do.
All right.
In addition to the zoning rewrite, it's been a very exciting week here in the planning division.
Uh-huh.
As you all know, because I wrote you an email about it, the schematic development plan for the comprehensive redevelopment of Lake Forest Mall was filed on Monday. As it is an active application, the record is now open. Rules restricting ex parte communications now apply, and discussions about the project outside of a public forum should be avoided, just for the public to be aware. The next public meeting will be the joint public hearing with the mayor and council, and that will be scheduled after staff has had time to digest the submission and determine if it's ready to move forward. So we'll keep you posted on that.
Great.
Order of magnitude, a month, 2, 3, 6 months out, what do you think?
What do you think, Greg?
Commit.
It's going to take at least a month for us to review the initial submission. I'll know more after I get through that first submission, on a better idea on a timeline from there.
Okay, great. Anything else?
That's it.
Thank you for that. Frank, anything tonight?
Nothing tonight. I
Okay.
think you've had enough.
Okay.
Between Lake Forest and the zoning code update,
Yeah.
which I
And
do
an
have. If
annexation
anybody
where
needs a
we're growing
paper
the ci-
copy, I've got
The
it.
city
right
is
here.
growing, you have an annexation, I mean, there's,
Paper copy.
you know,
Yeah,
firing
seriously.
on all cylinders, right? Okay. Thank you. If there's nothing else, have a good evening and we're adjourned.